Yo, what is going on everybody? So in today's video, I will be making a tier list for every single weapon inside of Rivals. And this also includes the melee weapons and the utility weapons. So this will all be a giant tier list and I'll be ranking basically every weapon from worst to best. But at the same time, it's kind of hard to do that because me personally, I think this game is actually very balanced with their weapons. A lot of people probably don't think that, but I've played this game a lot and I really do think that these weapons are pretty balanced. Some are definitely a little OP, like the XL gun, so that could probably use a nerf, but other than that, honestly, I think a lot of these guns are balanced. So without further ado, let's hop right into this tier list. Okay, so starting us off in this tier list, I have the flamethrower in last place for weapons in this game. The flamethrower doesn't have much range and it seems really OP, but when you go against other players, it does take a long time to kill them. They can easily counter you. I would say play this weapon inside of team games and definitely not solo games. The only other weapon I'll be putting in the D tier is the knife. The knife does give you a pretty good speed boost, but overall I'm pretty sure it takes 4 hits to kill an enemy, and there's a lot better options to have as a melee, just like the scythe or the katana. So honestly, the knife just isn't that good, and of course you can obviously melee with the other weapons, so you might as well just use the other melees. Starting off the C tier, I have the flare gun. So the flare gun is good for getting enemies out of certain locations or being able to like stand your ground in a certain area so they won't push into you. But overall, it doesn't do too much damage, and there is other ways to stop enemies from going certain paths. Starting up the flare gun, I have the shorty shotgun. So this shotgun is kind of good in the smaller maps, but I would much rather have different secondary weapons in the shorty. The shorty, honestly, to me is really inconsistent, and you have to be super close to an enemy for this thing to do like any damage. It might seem like you did a lot of damage from like a certain range, but then you switch back to your other weapon and you realize you didn't do that much damage at all. So this gun is pretty inconsistent and I would not recommend using it. Next up on our list, I have the Molotov. So the Molotov is also like the flare gun. It's good for pushing enemies out of a certain location or keeping them there, but just like the flamethrower and also the flare gun, I don't like the tick damage. The tick damage is cool, but it doesn't do too much to really make too much of a difference. So I would say you don't need to use the Molotov in your loadout. And finishing off the C tier, I have the trip mine. So the trip mine is kind of good for catching an enemy off guard round 1 if it is a 1v1, since you can launch yourself up into the air. But honestly, other than that, it's really hard to get a kill with. Like, it is extremely unlikely someone will walk onto that thing even though it is invisible. But it is good for getting a round 1 win. But other than that, I wouldn't recommend using it. Starting off the B tier, I have the handgun, which is one of the starter weapons. This is actually a very good gun if you have a very fast trigger finger, but if you don't, this gun is kind of bad and you can just use an automatic spray weapon as your secondary instead of the handgun. But the handgun can do some serious damage if you have a fast trigger finger. Next up in the B tier, I have the grenade launcher. So the grenade launcher is really cool to do cool movement things with, but if you're not really good at movement and if you're not in the backrooms map, the grenade launcher really isn't that good. And plus, the grenade launcher is a primary weapon, so it is supposed to do most of your damage. And if you can't get damage with the grenade launcher, it is kind of hard to finish off the enemies with just a secondary weapon. Next up in the B tier, I have the flash grenade. So the reason this is here is because it is kind of hard to realize if you actually hit an enemy with your flash grenade or not, because I'm pretty sure it doesn't like tell you if you hit them or not. You have to actually get close to them and see their eyes brightened, and that will tell you if they are flashed or not. But honestly, if you do throw your flash grenade, you can probably just assume that it hit them. And you should probably rush, but that could also get you killed. And the last utility is also going to be going in the B tier. The utilities aren't that great, but honestly, they shouldn't be that great. With the grenade, you can just chuck it. You can get some easy damage, or you can actually explode yourself and send yourself flying across the map to get a cool play. And the good thing about the grenade, it does not damage you when you throw it at yourself to get some movement. Next up in the B tier, I have the RPG. So the RPG is really only good if you're playing in team games, especially like 5v5, 4v4, things like that. The RPG can come in really handy if you can get high ground and just spray people with RPG. It does have a lot of ammo, pretty fast reload, and it has splash damage. aka you can hit more than 2 people or 1 person at a time. So in team games, I'd use the RPG, but other than that, I wouldn't recommend it. Also in the B tier, I have the minigun. So the minigun can definitely spray down people really fast, but good players who know how to avoid a minigun can easily outgun you with just an AR. So a minigun is pretty good against the noobs, but honestly, if you're going against better players, the minigun is not the gun you want to use. You want to use a better gun. So that's why the minigun is in the B tier. I'm also putting the slingshot in the B tier. So the slingshot is really good if you're able to like bounce your shots off of walls where the enemies can't see you, and you can strategize your movement by trying to get around walls where they can't see you, but then you can still shoot at them because the shots do bounce a lot, and if you're good with that, and then you might be good with the slingshot. I actually forgot about the smoke grenade, but the smoke grenade I think is actually really underrated. You can easily throw it and just sneak and surprise your enemies by just popping out of the smoke and like lasering them and then running back into the smoke and they have no idea where you went. But the smoke grenade does actually cover a pretty good amount of the map on the smaller maps, so I would recommend using the smoke grenade. And starting the A tier, I have the shotgun. So I'm pretty sure this shotgun has gotten nerfed since it released. I remember it being really strong on release, but after that it takes way more hits to actually kill people, especially from like medium range. But because of that nerf, I'm pretty sure that happened, the shotgun is the start of the A tier. Next in the A tier, I have the chainsaw. So the chainsaw is really good for just running down on enemies and finishing them off if they are weak, or just running to their spawn really quick and surprising them, trying to get damage for your teammates, or just things like that. So the chainsaw has a lot of good play opportunities. Up in the A tier, I actually have the trowel. So the trowel can be really good if you know how to place it and strategize around it. If you are a Fortnite player, this actually could come in handy because building walls might actually help you, because especially if you're facing a not as good player as someone else, the trowel could definitely help you block their shots and make them waste ammo, and then you can go around the wall and just kill them while they're reloading. What I have in the A tier is the bow. So if you use the fist with the bow, you can triple jump and it can be like really good movement, but the bow and arrow is kind of hard to hit your shots with, but with practice you can actually become like a really good bow player. And I recommend not charging up your shots if you're like right next to someone. Just spraying out your bow shots is actually pretty good, other than just charging up your shots. Ending the A tier, I have the paintball gun. So the paintball gun does some pretty good damage, and it can also, whenever you shoot at enemies, it puts paint on their screen, making it harder for them to see. So if you're facing like a mobile player and you use the paintball gun, this will definitely cause them some problems since they are on a much smaller screen, and they need as much of that screen as they can get. Guns that are left, or I guess utility weapons that are left, I think these are all S tier items. I don't think I'm able to rank these from worst to best, but just know that all of these guns are actually really good and they're basically meta right now. So starting off the S tier, I have the sniper. So the sniper technically isn't as good as it was before they removed third person on desktop, because I know me personally, I was a monster with the sniper before they removed third person, but now it is a lot more skillful and harder to hit shots with because it is just first person sniper now. But I know a lot of people are still really good with the sniper, and the sniper can one shot, so that automatically just put it in the S tier. Next up in the S tier, I have the revolver. So the revolver can let out shots really quick, but they are more inaccurate. But if you're close to someone and you let out all these shots, it will actually do a ton of damage. It can easily kill an enemy. And plus, if you're good with just clicking left click and not shooting it really fast, and if you're accurate, it still can do some serious damage. Next up on the S tier, I have the Uzi. So the Uzi is an amazing secondary weapon. Honestly, either that or the ray gun I'd recommend using, but the ray gun is pay to win, so the Uzi is just a great free to play option. But the Uzi can let out, I think, 32 bullets, and it shoots really fast, but it just has low damage. So once you're done using your primary weapon, you have to reload. You can switch to the Uzi and just spray down the enemy and probably get an easy kill. So Uzi for me is honestly easy S tier. Next in the S tier, I have the burst. So the burst can 4-shot enemies body shot, and if you do headshots, it's even faster of a death for the enemy. So I didn't really get around to using the burst until a little while, like a week after playing the game. because I always just use the AR, but the burst actually is a great choice, and honestly, it's just as good as the AR. It might even be a little better. In the S tier, I have Fist. So the Fist obviously had the double jump, creating for great movement, and you couldn't go wrong with the Fist, and it's also technically the starter weapons. So the Fists are just honestly really good. Up in the S tier, I have the Scythe. So obviously the Scythe, you can easily just jump onto a platform and get high ground on your enemy without them expecting it, making an easy kill or just for a lot of damage so you can push them. But the Scythe is one of the best movement weapons in the game, if not the best. Next up in the S tier, I have the Katana. So everyone knows about the Katana by now. Some players are getting used to the blocking the shots part, so they don't shoot at you when you try to block the shots. But worse players don't know about it, and they might let out their whole clip, and they might just kill themselves basically because of the Katana's ability. And it's really the only ability in the game that is like that. Super unique, and yeah, obviously deserves the S tier. Next up in the S tier, I have the Medkit. So the Medkit is super OP. Every single time I use it, people make fun of me for using it because it's pay to win and they don't have it and they can't heal up. So the Medkit is definitely super OP. You can even use it earlier in the match and then like save it for like last second when you're about to die, and you can use it really quick instead of using it the long way before you die. I'm sure most of you know what I'm talking about, but yeah, so Medkit, easy S tier. S tier, the AR. Obviously the AR has gotten nerfed since it first released, but it is still the starter weapon and it is still probably the best gun in the game. It is kind of, I would say it's definitely the best primary gun, because the next up we have the ray gun or the exo gun you can buy in the Robux pack, and you also get a cool weapon wrap with it. But the exo gun is super OP. It has splash damage, so you don't even have to hit the enemy and it still deals damage. 6 shots and the enemy is dead. So this is a really good pay to win secondary weapon, and honestly you couldn't go wrong with it. I highly recommend buying this bundle. Alright guys, so that is my full tier list of all of the current weapons inside of Rivals Roblox, and I will have the tier list linked in the description if you want to go make your own tier list to send to your friends or stuff like that. But if this video was informational to you in any way, make sure to like and subscribe. My UGC group will be in the description, and I will see you guys in the next one.